Thank you for listening to Mailbox Money, your guided tour through safe, sacred, and speculative investing with a plan and a purpose to do more good with newfound peace of mind. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Mailbox Money. I'm Jackson Wood, joined here by Ryan Kruger, my friend, my partner. In today's episode, we are going to talk about how to set the stage to begin investing. And the idea for this episode came to mind because earlier this week, I put out on Instagram a question and answer type of situation. I said, hey, I'm going to go Thursday night, which is every Thursday night at 9 p.m. I'm going to go live on Instagram. So send me some of your money questions and let's have a fun conversation. And maybe something that I say will be helpful to your situation. And I got a ton of questions from younger individuals, younger investors that said, I really want to start investing. I don't know how. I don't know if I'm ready. Can you talk about that? And so just happens to be that we have a framework that we use for ourselves and for the clients that we work for in how to begin investing, when it's a good idea to start investing, when you may want to wait on investing. And what we're going to do today is we're just going to chat through that, our process, and kind of clue you into how we think about investing, when is a good time to start investing. There's always this kind of sense of urgency, especially if you are on social media where you see people talking about investing and all of the money that they've made, and you can feel like this desire to start investing and start having your money work for you. And I think that that's great. I like the fact that it's motivating and that it's encouraging people to invest. But you need to make sure that you're investing at the right time of life and you're not skipping other things that may be important as well. So that's kind of the theme of today's episode.
And we've got the perfect barbell, especially if you're listening to this podcast, hopefully not viewing it on YouTube so you think we're the same age. I don't want to dispel that myth, but you really do have the young Jedi here, Jackson Wood, with a young, growing, about to be bigger, beautiful family. And then you have the old Yoda who've been around a few of these corners, who started out as a young investor a long time ago, and now whose kid is about to be done with college. And anything in the world I've seen or done wrong myself, I'm going to sprinkle those in here too to hopefully get both voices. And so we'll start out with one of my favorite Yodaisms, and think about all of this intimidating planning, budgeting, investing. Don't put it off or think it's intimidating. We hope to bring this alive with 2- and 3-dimensional stories, real life examples, opening our own playbook, not teaching or preaching, but showing exactly what has worked and why over 30 years. He once said, "Do or do not. There is no try." And I have that Yoda t-shirt that I wear proudly. And my kids make fun of me now. Your kids still think you're cool. And that's the difference. That's the biggest difference in our dad ages. And with that, we'll take off.
I love that. So I don't know how cool I am. My kids don't let me walk them into school anymore. They have to jump out and jet out the car door as soon as we pull into the parking lot. Okay, so when we're starting out investing, the first thing that you want to do is just have a clear understanding of where your money is going, right? You've got your job, you've got your income, and we just need to simply know where it's going and if there's any money at all left over at the end of the month. You definitely don't want there to be a deficit or that number to be negative, because that's going to clue us into, hey, maybe we need to start fixing some problems. So the best approach that I have seen, what I've done for myself, what I recommend my friends, family, colleagues, partners that I work for do, is look at your monthly expenses and break them into 3 categories. And let me say this. Budgeting is a very powerful thing to do. I don't like the word budget. And ultimately, once you have control of your money and your financial situation, you don't need to have a very strict budget. I call the next evolution of a budget a cash flow plan, just being aware of where your money is going, making sure that there's more money at the end of the month then went out, makes you got a surplus of money left over. But I think if we don't have a clear understanding, a budget is a good place to start. And what I've done and what I recommend is looking at your expenses. So this could be like literally going online and printing off your bank and your credit card statements and looking at them for a couple of months. But we want to start categorizing your expenses into 3 tiers. And this is the best way that I've seen to get a really clear picture. So tier 1 are the expenses of things you spend money on that you really can't live without. So shelter, your rent or your mortgage payment, your utilities, your grocery bill, your medicine if you have prescription drugs, your lights, water bill, your car payment, right? These are tier 1 expenses that you need to pay for in order to live, to have food, to have shelter, to be able to get to work. And so make a list of your tier 1 expenses. Then we can move on to tier 2 expenses. And tier 2 expenses, in my mind, are things that make your life a little bit more comfortable, but they're not essential enough to be in tier 1. So we're talking like your cell phone, your internet bill, maybe Netflix, like a gym membership, things like that belong in tier 2. And you really want to just get a yellow pad and start writing these down. It'll start cluing you in really closely to where your money is going and what your kind of behavior looks like with spending. And then we get to tier 3, and tier 3 are luxuries in your life that you may want, that you enjoy, but that really don't have any material impact on your happiness or your safety or your health. So tier 3 expenses in my mind are like the occasional trip to the mall, to Target, to Nordstrom, to buy new clothes, to go out to dinner, to buy a steak, to go to a concert, to travel. These are the fun things we like about. We probably focus way more on those than anything else. But once you've kind of gone through, and this may sound mundane, but it's actually really enlightening and it's really going to clue you in. And you don't have to do this every month. I'm just stating, do this so you have a clear picture of where your money is going. Once you do that, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, you're going to understand where your money is going, what you're spending your money on. You might find some things that you didn't remember. I'm notorious for that. Oh, I did actually spend that much going out to eat. We didn't need to get the dessert or, whatever, but really clue yourself in. And I do like the idea of looking at this over a couple of different months so that you can gain kind of like an average. Some months you might be spending more on tier 3 than you did the previous month. So try to find the average. And what you want to do is you want to total all of those expenses up and you want to compare it to what's coming in. And if what's coming in is less than what's going out, well, now we've got some work to do, right? So the first place that you're going to start working to better your life is just cutting down on the tier 3 expenses. All right, I'm $500 in the hole. I probably shouldn't go to Nordstrom. I probably shouldn't go out to dinner, and I don't need to go out, to date night every Friday or whatever. So we're going to really start eliminating the waste. Tier 3 expenses are really easy to cut out. It takes a little bit of discipline, a little bit of dedication, but you don't need them. They don't make your life any better, probably make you a little bit heavier. You have kind of buyer's remorse after you spend money on tier 3 expenses. Tier 2 expenses are a little bit more difficult to trim down, but you can do it. One of my favorite podcasts is a finance podcast with this guy, Ben Carlson, and he talks about how every single year he calls up the cable company to renegotiate his cable rate. And, he's done it. I've listened for so many years now. This is where we're going to really think about decreasing what you're spending. So do you need 2 gym memberships? Do you need the jiu-jitsu membership and you go to jiu-jitsu, once every 3 months? Can you get a cheaper cell phone bill? What about your cell phone payment? Are you financing a cell phone that you don't need where you can go buy one in cash and not have that bill? So as we walk through eliminating some tier 3 expenses, optimizing and streamlining tier 2, we're hoping to get to that surplus at the end of the month where you've got some extra money left over. Once you get to tier 1, this is a little bit more difficult. Do I get a smaller house? Can I get a cheaper car? Can I get any of my tier 1 expenses lowered? Although they are essential and you need to spend money on them, how can we kind of optimize this? And I think this is a really good approach to budgeting because it's going to clue you into where your money's going, where you're happy it's going and where there's some waste and some bloat. And I think that that's going to really give you a clear picture. And remember, all we're doing here is setting the stage so that you can begin investing and begin bettering your financial life in the future.
Yoda's summary of that and what I've learned is the simplest way to budget and the rarest account of them all. Self-awareness. You can actually do everything Jackson just said, in my opinion, on the back of an envelope. It doesn't have to be overwhelming and think you need to go. I still use Excel, by the way. I'll take that against any app, any software package, any financial plan. You don't have to go find a fancy calculator software or go hire a financial planner. The back of an envelope and self-awareness, as long as whatever it is, and we have episodes on free cash flow at the highest, most sophisticated end of investing, why not start right there as a beginner too, at any age, as long as what Jackson said, there's a little bit more coming in than going out, then you can frankly do whatever in the world you want. What often happens and derails people, especially when they're young and everybody's ingrained and conditioned to believe you can invest, you got time on your side, you can be aggressive, don't worry about it, you got to keep up with the Joneses and fake it till you make it, and all these career self-awareness. Trading rule number one that I'll share at any age works, and certainly on budgeting: when in a hole, stop digging. So I think self-awareness at the highest end of, we see super sophisticated investors with zero budgeting problems that don't want to open the envelope after a bad month and don't want to look. The same way some might not be willing to total the expenses like you're talking about, to just see the bottom line. If it's $1 more in cash flow in than out, you're good. We can start from there. As long as you're not digging a deeper hole with considerably more money going out than coming in, that's a real simple way to budget, and you could do it on the back of an envelope with a pencil. And I'll flip things around, and while you would come at it tier 3, and you're right, those are the biggest, especially on the debt side, numbers to attack first. I would say, one of Yoda's secrets was to unlearn what we've learned, and starting at your tier 1 of, maybe I don't pick my house and my car based on the payment I can afford. I never did that. The advice I gave, and for full disclosure, this is coming from a guy who, to this day, when somebody talks about runaway inflation and how much it costs to eat out, I go to Whole Foods and they say it's whole paycheck and all those jokes for years and years. I get a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a banana and wonder what people are worried about. I happen to love my work. I have a standing date, for one, at my desk, so it's a little easy. But what I have learned with the benefit of time, when all those Wall Street suits that I donated to a prison ministry and all those cufflinks and watch and cars that I don't need any, and I actually am happier now without them, even though I can afford them now, I couldn't then. One of the secrets to life that I've learned is not about having what you want, but about really wanting what you have, and that's a pretty good way to budget too.
Yeah.
So little old man down the road to ask those, the best way to find out what's ahead, to ask those coming back. There's a couple of crumbs, and I've shared that open secret hiding in plain sight with any young intern that's come here, and they said, how do you get to be like you and Jackson? What's the secret? And I say, and I don't use the word budget, but I just say, I lived in an apartment and $500 all bills paid. And there's an inflation adjustment to that. I'm an old man now, but I never wanted to try to cheat or get there early or buy a big house and get on the wrong side of debt. And it was funny because when you said we were asked and thought about this episode, I do have to give one last quote, and then you take it away and dig in to what people are really here for. But this dear friend, female, who sent me a piggy bank because she knew that $500 all bills paid apartment was called Westview in Houston, still here. Super old, terrible, dangerous place, which was perfect because it made me want to get back to work. Said he put his change in a piggy bank. I'm sorry, little piggy went to Freedom Day to invest in stock. He put his change in a piggy bank, and now he owns the block. And one of my only dreams and reason I was willing to defer gratification was Westview Apartments. Now your Freedom Day headquarters, the building we own to do all this work, is on the street, Westview, which makes me smile every day I walk up. But it takes time, and that's a secret hiding in plain sight. Humility is the secret of this, and the grind. So jump back in, and I'm listening and taking notes. And I wish I had you when I was a young investor and I was just starting Jackson Wood.
I love it. Okay, I got a quick story. So we're having another baby, and I realized I wasn't going to have enough seats in my car.
No wonder you got the budget sheet back out. You had to dust it off, brother.
Yeah, no kidding, right? And so I realized, like, I woke up one day and said, I'm not going to have enough seats for all the bodies I got to drive around in my car. So I had to get I had to find something with more seats. And I pushed back on, we can make it work. It's no big deal. Ultimately, I had to get a new car, right? So I called my parents after I got the car, and I said, hey, I got a new car. And, my parents know how I spend money, and they were surprised and taken back. And they said, you cut out a little bit when you said that, but it sounded like you said you got a new car. And I said, yeah, I got a new, and then I paused for a second, to me car. And they, I brushed through to me part, right? I got a new to me car. And my parents were just completely surprised. And I did get a used Toyota. But I think it's all about, if you make these financial decisions that can set you back, you're not going to be able to have freedom in the future, and you're going to be kind of a slave to paying payments and all that. So my new to me, 7-year-old Toyota car, I love it. I drive it around. It's the nicest car I've ever had. But it wasn't, I could have gone out and I could have gotten, an $80,000 new SUV or something like that. But I'm at the point in my life where other things have priority than the type of car. And I made the mistake when I first got my, big boy job with my first paycheck of getting a car that was too expensive, and I hated it. So anyways, all right. So going back to this, once you have taken a chainsaw and eliminated wasteful spending and, optimize your budget, you're going to have a surplus at the end of the month. And what you do with that surplus is incredibly important. So once we've done that and given ourselves a surplus, now it's time to put that money to good use. And the first place that we like to put that money is to the elimination of short duration, short-term, high-interest debts. And what I'm talking about here is credit cards or personal loans or loans that have smaller balances that you can really just start chipping away at. Credit card companies are tricky. They'll advertise like a 1% introductory rate, and then they'll hit you with like a 27% annual interest rate after you've had a balance for a year. Or these buy now, pay later things. If you go on any website, there's and you're checking out in your card, there's always an option, pay it now for $130 or 4 easy payments of whatever, or, payment a month for 24 months and you'll pay this thing off. We're going to attack those as quickly as we can. There's popular methods called the snowball method, which is you take the one with the lowest balance and you start chipping away where you make the payment plus you put your surplus to that. Or the avalanche method is where you do that based off of the highest interest rate. I don't care which one you use. All we want to do is just start hammering these high interest debts and getting rid of them. A rule of thumb is once you have sacrificed and struggled through getting these things paid off, make it a rule to never carry a credit card balance from month to month. There's a myth, and I want to dispel this myth, that if you pay your credit card off at the end of each month, it hurts your credit score. I don't know where that myth came from. Probably the credit card companies infiltrating personal finance blogs or something, but that's a myth. We want to pay these things off every single month. We want to attack those. And whenever you spend money on a credit card, whether you have one or not, make it a goal to pay it off at the end of each month, no matter what. And I think that will set you up to be in a good financial position moving forward.
As the head resident mathlete here, the other way to look at that, and I think a key conversation that I'm often surprised isn't part of it, Jackson's advice is simple and it's accurate and it's important. The amount of people that don't talk about that and want to invest or talk about big trades or opportunities while carrying any of those debts is just divorced from reality, and the self-awareness and just the simple math of if you have a 17% credit card debt, I don't care what the balance is, there is no guaranteed 17% return in the stock market, the crypto markets, the bond market, any market. And anybody who is invested before knocking out those double-digit debts of any kind, that's the simplest place to start. No leverage, no scared money. You will also be giving your investments an unfair advantage down the road. But first things first, extra cash flow, extra savings that you don't need to spend for the next year or two. Knock out all of that no matter how long it takes before you invest $1. We've told people that have been referred, dear friends, family members, you don't need to invest $1 with us for a couple of years. We're not going anywhere. This, and anybody else who tries to convince you to invest and not even ask those questions is in it for themselves. We're in this for you, and we want to share an open playbook, and math works. And debt or paying those off are guaranteed rates of return unavailable in any market.
I could not agree more. So as we go through this process, we've streamlined, optimized our budget, given ourselves a surplus each month. We've attacked credit cards. Now we're going to make sure that you have a big old pile of safe money sitting aside in case something goes wrong. A lot of people will say you want 6 months of expenses, you want 9 months or 12 months of expenses. I think the answer to that depends on you personally, but we are big advocates, and in fact, we won't even invest for clients that do not have a big old pile of safe money. And when I'm talking safe money, cash money in the bank. One trick I've noticed is make sure that that cash account that you have is not easy to access, because I have seen over and over again that once people build these emergency funds or cash, piles of cash, they tend to have more, quote, emergencies, right? Oh, I did need to go that. Don't treat that emergency fund as like a slush fund. Keep that, set it aside. It's boring. It's there. It's insurance. If you can't work or you get sick, you can still pay your bills. That's the goal of that money. We're not trying to generate a return on it. It's to be there for peace of mind, because it unlocks the ability for you to then take the more exciting step, which is invest your money into equities, into stocks, into assets that will grow over time and start securing your financial freedom in the future. So, pecking order, streamline the cash flow, cut out unnecessary expenses, maximize that surplus at the end of each month, attack credit cards. Before we invest a penny, we want to get rid of credit card debt, any high interest debt. We want to build an emergency fund, build a cash reserve. We call that safe money here. We want a pile of that. And then once you've done that, now you have the ability to invest. We've got dozens of podcasts on investing and how we invest and what we believe in and how we set these up. But when it comes to investing, there are two main strategies that you will need to pick. And I think a combination of the two are really great. There are retirement accounts, which are called 401ks, Roth IRAs. When you decide to put money into an investment account that's designated as a retirement account, you're agreeing to yourself that you are going to use that money well into the future. In your late 50s, in your 60s, you're going to say, I'm putting money aside now. I'm going to let that grow, compound, dividends reinvest, so that one day in the future, I can use that money to live on and to supplement my income with. There's another type of account called a brokerage account or an individual account that will give you a little bit of flexibility with your spending. You don't have to tie that money up until your early 60s or your late 50s. You have the ability to put the money in. It sits in the account, it grows while it's invested. But if you need to take that money out prior to turning 60, the rule's 59 and a half, it's kind of a goofy year. You can access that. Obviously, the longer you keep that money in, the market and invest it, the better it will grow and the more money you will have. But this is the type of account where if you are able to reach financial freedom in your 40s or in your 50s, it's good to have a mix of different accounts, retirement accounts, individual brokerage accounts, joint accounts, whatever. And so we like the idea of going through this pecking order of setting the stage to begin investing. And then once you're investing, taking advantage of all of the opportunities that you can with any of that extra money. And the beautiful thing about this is if you go through the process in the way that we've described it, any money that you part with into an investment account is never going to be scared money. If the markets go down, if the markets have a rough year like they're having this year, you're not going to be second guessing yourself and saying, oh, I wish I wouldn't have put that money in the market. I wish I would have paid off my credit card at 18%, because we've already knocked that out well before we invested any of the money. So it sets the stage perfectly to take advantage of the incredible opportunity that we have to invest. We have a podcast titled The Stock Market is Rigged for Us, for the little guy. I'll link that in the description notes here, but we are just priming ourselves in our financial situation so that we can take full advantage of this. And when the volatility comes, when the scary time in the market comes, you can take advantage of that by putting more money in and securing even more freedom for you in the future than being scared and second guessing yourself and wishing you would have done something else with that money.
2 pieces of advice from the old guy here, and looking back. And the reason a 401k works, and you're spot on to start there, first things first. And it's the same reason I believe in your cash reserves point. Your greatest ROI, and no investment advisor is going to ever tell you this, it's not any of the investments or the products that they're trying to sell. I'm going to tell you the truth. Your greatest ROI will be your craft, period. So invest in yourself. Have extra time, money, capability to continue to invest in your craft, your career, which might mean finding something you really enjoy a heck of a lot more than you're doing right now. It's not going to be from spreadsheets or investments, people sitting there and staring at a screen hoping the market does it for them. Those are the ones that end up with dysfunctional relationships with money. The 401k, just like the elimination of debt, is a guaranteed rate of return if you don't invest a penny. What do I mean by that? If all you do is take advantage of the tax break, if you're in the 30% tax bracket, that's a guaranteed 30% rate of return. If you don't invest a nickel of it, which we wouldn't recommend, we would, but just the simple math of, oh yeah, because if I don't invest in the 401k, by the time it gets to me, it's 70 cents. So just taking advantage and setting up that account first, the discipline of you pay yourself first. I would adopt that same thing in your very first savings or brokerage account that Jackson mentioned. I don't care what it is, but if you set aside something and then figure out how much you can spend, hard to do, but really a simple solution. And the last piece of advice that comes to mind, and I give you all the credit in the world for this bucketing strategy, and you talked about tiers earlier from when you're starting. Well, investment, Jackson has the same simple tiers: safe money, sacred money, speculative money. If I could tell a younger Ryan Kruger one piece of advice, and I was guilty of this no different than anybody. When you're younger, you think you have time and you're told and conditioned, certainly by our industry, which is more than a few conflicts of interest, speculate, invest wildly, be aggressive then. You have time on your side. The simple math, and we have an episode that Jackson can point you to, the mailbox math, the reason this show is called what it is for all ages, especially beginners. We talked about the simplest starting points with any amount, generating 10, 25, and 50% mailbox money to you every year. That's not a trade. That's not appreciation. That's income, mailbox money income annually. And we share the simple secrets hiding in plain sight. And these are not the aggressive investments. These are some of the simplest, safest, and what we call sacred investments. Starting early with any small amount, most people say, I'm going to hit a big lick and then I'll get serious. Then I'll invest seriously. I would exactly flip that. You can afford to speculate later with a different kind of money. It'll work perfectly.
I love it. I absolutely love it. If anybody has any questions, wants to chat with Ryan and I, You can email us at team@freedomdaysolutions.com, and you can always visit our website, freedomdaysolutions.com, and we will see y'all next week.
This show is brought to you by Freedom Day Solutions, LLC, a registered investment advisory firm advising individuals and families nationwide. Performance is not guaranteed, and past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. To learn more, visit freedomdaysolutions.com. This show contains general information that is not suitable for everyone and was shared for informational purposes only. Any forward-looking statement or opinion expressed is subject to change without notice. Nothing contained herein constitutes investment, legal, tax, or other advice, nor is it to be relied on in making investment or other decisions. Clients of Freedom Day Solutions may hold positions in the securities discussed.